First of all, I would like to thank the Strelka Institute for Media, Architecture and Design, and I especially want to thank you, Dasha, Rodion, and Elena for organizing this lecture. So the lecture that I prepared for today is an hybrid between an academic and a professional lecture. It's a little bit too long, perhaps, but hopefully we'll get through it. It's a lecture that put together some observation that I've been trying to theorize in the last 4 years. And I've also been pursuing it during the elaboration of my PhD thesis at UPC in Barcelona. So this is a lecture that, as you can see from the title, is related to the concept of pattern. In this lecture, I'd like to show how pattern can integrate different levels of the project. So if we define architecture as a complex system in which all key factors are interconnected, or rather is the result of, let's say, the interaction between endogenous and exogenous characters, so architecture is always the result, the effort of make these levels to interact. And so accordingly, in vernacular architecture, we see how this kind of interaction happens naturally. What you see here is the settlement of Baila in Zambia, in Africa, and it was studied by the ethnomathematician Ron Eglash. And here you can see how a complex geometrical system, which is a fractal, where we have a circle that is made of other circles, which are made of other circles, are representing perfectly both the social structure, the architecture, and the landscape operation, almost spontaneously, because we have the entrance in this side, and we have this gradient of circles that became bigger and bigger until getting to the Dutch position with the house of the chief. And this gradient is also representing the social structure, because we start with the storage, we get to the animal spaces, and then to the people until reaching the chief. So as endogenous characters, we mean all the geometrical, spatial, all the technical elements, the aesthetic, the social parameters that all together represent the groundwork of the architect of the design process. And by exogenous characters, I mean all the factors which bear from outside into the project, such as the social, environmental, and economical context. So architecture is always the outcome of an effort of making both categories interact with each other. So when the project is only focused in one of those things is when you have formalism, like if the project is only concentrated in the technical aspect, you will have technical formalism, or only in the aesthetic side, you will have aesthetic formalism, etc. So in order to integrate these levels, we need a pattern. And as the philosopher and scientist Frigyio Capra says, a pattern is a configuration of relationships, which connect the abstract and the practice dimensions. And patterns are everywhere. Even when you learn to walk, you're learning an ordered movement which allow us to walk. Or when you're learning a new language, you're learning a pattern of words which together have a meaning. So a pattern is what transforms the movement of the body into dance step, for instance, the noise into sound, and the sound into music. And what we see here is the system of dance notation designed by the choreographer Fouillet for the passe-pied, which is a French Baroque chord dance and instrumental form of the 16th to 18th centuries. And this system is based on the pattern of the dance indication. You have the placement of the feet, the movement of the arms, and at the same time, this system, this graphic pattern, correspond to the bar lines in the music score. So we can see how a visual abstract pattern can describe the real patterns executed in music or in dance. No? So of course, dance is neither in the dance indication nor in its execution. It's something more. It is also connected with the emotional sphere, with the sensible to the sensible world. And an automatic piano, for instance, cannot replace the interpretation of a musician, no, and the creative execution of a piano player. So music or dance or design or architecture is something more. It's also connected to the emotional, the sensible world. That's why I named this lecture emotional patterns, no? Because I want to see how something that seems very aseptic, very rational or mathematical can embed also, can transmit, can provoke emotional effects. I would like to use the definition of Gregory Bateson when he says that pattern is a structure that connects other structures, because he put in relationships both concept of structure and relationships. No, he emphasized both notions, which are really important topics in architecture. So patterns are repeating configurations of geometrical shapes that are flexible enough to grant the architect freedom to introduce variation. Within a system of architectural relationships, they are particularly useful for establishing coherence and unity alongside constant change. So in his beautiful book, Clifford Pickover has argued that art and science are not very much apart, and that they can sometimes share the same objectives, the same goals. So with the spread of computational graphics, the distance between art and science has 40 degrees. No? Both artists and scientists are sharing the same tools, are sharing algorithms to represent natural and artistic objects. And when it comes to connecting art, science, and design, there cannot be better inspiration of Leonardo da Vinci. Because it was connected, these three disciplines, but also it was fusing them into one unique synthesis. No? That's why Leonardo was, we can say that he was one of the first systemic thinkers. So understanding a phenomenon for him meant connecting one phenomena with another through similar patterns. So he discovered how, for instance, studying the proportion of the human body can generate also, can lead him to study also the study of gears or levels, and then interlinking so animal physiology with the engineering. Or the pattern of turbulence in water led him to observe similar patterns in the flow of air, and from there he went on to explore the nature of sound, the theory of music, and the design of musical instruments. So we see how the same pattern can be found in different disciplines, in different fields, and then they can be synthesized by the same designer. So in scientific and mathematical research, patterns emerge as a formal diagrams of organization that study relations. And in the words of Fritjof Capra, there are two approaches to understand the world that have been in competition throughout the history of science and philosophy. The first approach starts with the question, what is it made of? And the answer is, in this case, you study building blocks, you study components, you study the matter. And so this, from this, so the mechanicist philosophy comes from this, from this materialistic approach. The other approach starts with the question, what is the pattern? And when you study the pattern, you study relationships and organizations. And Capra synthesizes both approaches because you want to understand life. And so if you want to understand life, you need both. You need to understand the matter and you need to put things into relationships. And there's another dimension that we need, which is the activity necessary to materialize the pattern, which is the process dimension. So as architect, how do we choose a pattern? It is the result of the culture and experience of the architect. And within the design process, I identified two different ways. The first one, in the first case, patterns comes during the project, no? So it arises from the project condition. And as an architect, you discover a certain order through the design process. In the second case, pattern anticipate the project. It comes from external references, geometrical, cultural systems. So then you have to adapt it to the condition of the project. So let's see the first case when the pattern emerges from the condition of the project, and I will show some project that have been developed since 2007. And I really want to start with a happy topic, which is with a happy project, which is a cemetery in Vespella de Gaià, very close to Barcelona. So this project was like, I mean, I like this project because it was my first project with my office, and because it's the project in which we developed a certain way of systematize in a certain manner a methodology. So this is the topography of, this is the site. So the competition site is located on a hill along a natural slope, which is spotted with several clusters of rocks. And let's see how in a project like Vespella de Gaià, there's a certain pattern that starts to appear after a superposition of different levels. So we determine the area of intervention by discarding some part of the area, like the high slope areas. Then we identify the medium slope area and the low slope area. And also we identify the vegetation. And so this is the resulting area if we subtract vegetation, high slope topography. So we start to introduce a programmatic level through an homogeneous distribution of programmatic nodes. And in the second step, we define the shape of these programmatic nodes, these prototypes that are determined by different vectors that interact with the context and the programmatic aspect. So the generation of both chapels and craters come from the same geometrical strategy. And slowly, through a process of adaptation, we introduce these vectorial voids that change, and through a process of displacement and iterations, then we have no certain kind of operation through according to the environment, like rotation, displacement, scaling, and subtraction. So a new order seems to emerge. So this is the level of the layer of the Pantheon's elements. Then we define the columbarium elements and the tomb's craters. So a new social structure takes place, and we connect all the different elements with a system of with a path, with a circulation path that is based on a branching system which connects the built objects and then blurs into the landscape as the lines in the palm of your hand. So a new landscape appeared, and our main aim was to generate an organism, avoiding huge land displacement, respecting the existing vegetation, and introducing 3 different typologies. So here we can see a zoom where all the elements take place along the branching path. This is the church with the parking. The functional program nodes have been distributed on site according to vegetation, topography, and sun orientation, and minimal path. And here you can see the craters with a different clustering of tombs, columbarium. So even the cultural dimension is an evident part of the project. So as it's not common to design a cemetery, we did an investigation about the cultural references in order to understand what kind of relationship we wanted between living people and dead people. Because every culture has defined its own way of reacting to the consequences of death. And in our culture, the most diffuse way of body treatment is by burying in the earth. Another key point of funerary architecture is the way natural light is treated. This idea of light coming from the ceiling, which provides not only the natural illumination of the space and the connection between life and beyond, but also it's introducing the time factor inside of the space. It's like a sun clock. And the Pantheon in Rome is an obvious reference of this. So all these components were influencing the architectural scale. So the second strategy was based on the introduction of these built objects, which can be considered either as a small tholos or a small amphoras. And this is the result of this operation, which is transforming a cemetery in a landscape for meditation and contemplation. So although a very different project, Harvenpa was approached using the same methodology. The aim of the competition was to create an ecological low-rise housing area within the beautiful Finland landscape. So we are in the suburb of Harvenpa, which is a city which is facing a beautiful landscape with a lake. And here we can see the site of the competition, in which we have a site which is more specific for the urbanity, and another one that is more about amenities, which is connected. It's facing the lake on one side, and on the other side is connected to the city center, which is on the north. So Finland is a country with many lakes, creating a country where water and land are situated side by side, creating a fascinating lake district. So water seems to be at one with the land in a fractal structure where autosimilarity conditions are repeated continuously. So it seems almost natural to repeat this structure in our urban intervention. So we take into strong consideration the existing water paths, which are these 2 existing ones, to generate our system of relationships. And because this direction is excellent for houses orientation to the south, and also for reinforcing the drainage system, which is part of the briefing. It's a wetland, so it was important to generate a system of drainage. And we transformed this necessity in a part of the design. So we start to, instead of a deterministic geometric law, we generate a growing pattern through the interpolation of the existing water paths. So we establish this this system of variable relations. Again, we start with the exclusion of elements that we don't want to introduce into the project, but in which we want to generate relationships. And these are the interference with existing buildings, for instance, but also it's interacting also with the topography, with the vegetation. So it is an interactive process that changes continuously, where a new pattern emerges step by step. And so we introduced the programmatic, these colors are representing the programs of the intervention from housing to leisure, close to the lake. And we start with the deformation of the lines, because we need more or less space depending on the plot necessity, depending on the regulation and on the program. So this is the result of the programmatic lines. We have these 8 lines that come out from the context and where we place the programmatic activities. And also the programmatic level plays an important role in the spatial definition. Also we detail the program in the specific, following also density and distances rules. All the activities that are related to nature, like fishing, horse racing, etc., are placed in the right part, are these green strips. And so the line start to take a dimension. They became a strips according to the program. We need to give them the second dimension. So we therefore made the water lines in the other directions. And these lagoons are the consequence of both the context and the program. We see how the master plan start to take a shape, and it incorporates also the natural condition. So we have these water lagoons in which all the architecture is integrated. And we realize this kind of water terracing that generate a relationship between water and architecture and introduce a bioboundary purification, which happened through vegetation. So the contact between architecture and water happens to these water terraces used for bioboundary purification and also for leisure activities. So we see here how the plots are organized. From one side they have the road, then we have these plots with a small garden, the garage, and then they face the water. So this system is setting the basis for the architectural scale. And I don't want to enter into the details of the different typologies, like terrace houses, or a single house courtyard, two-family house. And this is the final result, where the water became the backbone of the whole intervention, and which is integrating landscape, activities, programs, etc. So while having illustrated the ability of pattern to interact more levels of the project and having shown a level after the other, the process that go into structuring the project are not linearly arranged, but are connected in a network. So it means that the design process is not linear. There is no linear sequence of operation, but one operation like the D can have consequences in the first one, So in a feedback loop. So for instance, in the project that we've seen, the first pattern that defines the relationship between the environment and the architecture can have consequences into the program, can have consequences into the traffic system. But also the traffic system, whenever we start with the traffic system, we can have consequences into the concept. And sometimes, even the first is strongly compromised by the last operation. And so we have to sometimes even reestablish a new concept if the concept is losing its consistency. So if we consider a landscape as a complex system in which many factors are interconnected, then we need instruments of design capable of managing active characteristics of the project. So we can interpret all the social, economic, and ecological aspects. This is at the same time the plan of a master plan. I mean, it's just two buildings that are representing the topography of the buildings And at the same time, it's representing the pressure of air in this typography, because we had to reduce the pressure along, and it was a land track that we were transforming into a office master plan. So we really need instruments that are active, that have active characteristics. So not just a drawing that is representing something, but vectors instead of lines, nodes instead of points, and topological surfaces instead of plans. And in the contemporary world, the computer plays a vital role in understanding first and allow after the interaction between multiple architectural levels. For instance, Bill Hillier, in 2007, has linked through the software depth map the physical and geometrical properties with those of society interaction. So it means that he was calculating mathematically the possibility of a space, the possibility of interaction. So he can understand if some place is not working for the interaction of people, and this can be calculated mathematically. So of course, in a place like this, it's obvious that the center would be more, it has more potentiality for the interaction. But in a city, the operation in one spot can have consequences in another side of the city, and these consequences are unpredictable. So algorithms are powerful instruments in the hands of architects. And in the slide that I show here, you can see that this is the representation. It's just a print screen of Grasshopper, which is a program in which you can establish, instead of using drawing like plans section, you just establish relationships between the parameters and the characteristic of the project. So for instance, what we have on the right is the result of this set of tools, this set of relationships. So this graphics is, so instead of drawing it, we are just explaining to the machine how to generate this. And then we can actively operate into the system for making changes. So we don't have to redesign it, but we have just to change some of the parameters. So for instance, in this case, we have this surface, and then we say, okay, we have this line, and we make an extrusion through the two rails, and then we divide it in fins, etc. So everything can be, it's a set of operations that we transmit to the machine. So we need a responsive, also we need a responsive geometry system that interact with the knowledge and techniques of other disciplines, like urban strategy, environmental engineering, ecology, etc. So let's go now to the second case, no, which is from abstraction to practice, when the pattern precedes the project. And I will make you just two examples, which are more generic, and then I will go through other projects of external reference architects. In this case, I will show the branching pattern, which is basically the pattern of the trees, but also represent the pattern of the rivers. And what is the property of a branching pattern? The property of a branching pattern is to collect first from a wide area energy, fluxes, strands, water, and afterwards concentrating it along a path. No? And at the same time, you can read the same pattern in the other way. No? It's a system for distributing, not only for concentrating. So whenever you understand these properties of the pattern, then you can apply to structures, no, for reducing the number of the pillars, or you can apply to a ferry terminal or an airport for increasing the contact between architecture and the medium, no, for having a better circulation, or as a system for of irrigation for a park in Madrid. And another pattern, another meaningful pattern is the wave pattern, which is represented by wave functions in phase opposition, no, mathematically. And it's like it's a pattern that represents like a flexible system that doesn't lose the structural continuity. So you can see it in project like for an office architect when they combine and they integrate both the roof of the architecture with the lighting, or a system of communication that they adapt into the topography, or for allowing the structural continuity for a skyscraper, like the proposal for an office architect for the World Trade Center in New York. So let's see the strip pattern. This is a strip pattern where lines are elastic and can be deformated according to the project needs. It is not a rigid geometry, but it's a flexible system of relationships. And at present, new lifestyle have favored the emergence of some kind of user profile, like in this case, Churros, which is an industrial designer and active art director. And in this case, we try to to transform a garage in a place that is both residential and a workspace. So the project exists over 2 floors, the ground floor and the mezzanine area. As you can see here, the strip pattern is making an interpretation of the space, and at the same time, whenever we introduce some object like the furniture that you see here in gray, you have a deformation of the system. And here you see the residential space where the lounge area take place. So the mezzanine holds a large space in which domestic programs are mixed with common spaces. The larger island sofa acts as an object that conceals the sliding bed, which slides in and out as the user needs. So it's a place for having meeting, but sometimes you can, whenever you need, you can open it and transform it in a bedroom. I told you that that Churros is a nice client. So this is the island, and this is the service wall that you have in front of it, where you have the kitchen, the bathroom, and the walk-in wardrobe. And when we go downstairs, we used another kind of pattern that is based on triangulation, and is an object that is generating a link between the 2 levels, the mezzanine and the ground floor, as you can see here. So there's a large space for a photo shoot studio, and the ground floor include this large structure that is made of steel, and it was thought for the collection, the pop art collection of the client. But then when the client saw the space that clean and then white, he decided just to keep the collection to the boxes. And here you can see the part that you can open. There's a folding part of the structure. And this is me with my business partner during a party. So the pattern that we studied for the next project is inspired on the other project we've seen, and in this case, it's the pattern is generating like a substructure, and this is a project that we've done for the Escuela Superior de Diseño ID, and it's a project that we have designed for a congress, for a sort of fair of schools. So instead of showing like the project of the school and the different kind of services that the school was offering, we thought it was more interesting to show the talent of the students, and we made it like as it was like a collection, like a talent blood bank, no? So each element is containing, is virtually, no, I mean, it's not really the blood of the student, but I mean, this was the idea, but the students were not available to this kind of experience. So we thought it was nicer to put like a fluo blood that was connected with different activities. So for instance, we have the red part that is about visual communication, then we have the purple one that is about design, then we have management, etc. And we just show some projects through the two screens, and we just exposed a mock-up of this project that was awarded. So as you can see, the both is a light and permeable white structure, which is generating this kind of installation. No? It's and more than 200 different bloat bags are hanged on the structure. So, for instance, this is Carol, and she was one of the designers of the world who achieved a successful career after the school. And so she had a red blood which is the color of the visual communication. So, in fact, this art installation is highlighting the different disciplines of the taught in the school through a system of color coding. This is the prototype of an ultra-compact two-wheels vehicle. And this is a view from the main corridor of the first space. Below the reception desk, follow the same geometry. And here we can see the scale of the pavilion. And here you see the relationship between the substructure and the content, with the pneumatic pillows and the blood bags. So this, I'd like to show this project because, I mean, it's partially following the rules of the pattern. But because it was published here in Russia, so I just want to show this freak project that you Russian appreciated. So we combine. It's a tapas bar that takes place in Barcelona. That combined the best Spanish ham with the best Catalan coca bread and the bicycle culture. Don't ask me why, but it was the briefing of the client. In Barcelona, it's becoming quite fashionable. The culture of hipsters, etc. So now everybody has a bike. And premium Catalan fast food is the idea of this tapas bar, no? So the project decomposes the basic ingredients of the concept, resembling them in a new spatial experience. So, for instance, the ham become an iconic element that, when repeated, produce a luminous landscape ceiling. No, we have hanging hams. Which differ in color, graphics, and display messages such as Moritz, which is the sponsor and partially the owner of this place, or Barcelona best beer, or takeaway, fast food, premium Catalan fast food, etc. No? So we made a catalog of different hams. So let's say that the marketing is part of the, and the graphic is part of the interior design. Here you can see, the lamps and the real ham and the messages are part of the same landscape. And the best ham is made by happy pigs, pigs that who roam freely in their natural habits. So they can ride freely for around Barcelona. And this naive vision is sculpted into this wall. So this is the illustration. And the result is quite, no? It's not bad. And then according to the where you were, I mean, we were sculpting this, and we realized that according to the depth of the sculpture, you can relieve different textures. No, so you have, I don't know, the bricks or the mortar, and then the paint. So you can generate this kind of nuances in the drawing. So the tomato is the other ingredient that is used, and is usually rubbed over bread for preparing the pan amb tomàquet, which is my friends here that lived in Barcelona know that Catalans are very proud of this pan amb tomàquet, which is basically a bruschetta with tomato, no? But it's like a protagonist of the Catalan cuisine, so it was important to give an homage to this product. And so that's why we made a tomato out of hexagonal jars that are traditionally used in Spain for storing tomatoes. Okay, so it's a tomato made of tomatoes. And all the bicycle culture instead is dominating the lower part of the bar. So, of course, this is a prototype. I mean, the idea of the clients was to opening a series of tapas bar, but instead of opening a series of tapas bar, after less than 1 year they close it. Because they didn't get the permission for placing the tables, but fortunately we are opening another one in a bigger place. So here you see, we were studying this kind of navigational system, which doesn't make many sense in a small space, but if you think in a bigger scale, it can be very helpful, no, for understanding where is the bathroom or where you can, how can you orientate in the space. So these are the stools, very comfortable as you can imagine, but for a tapas bar, I mean for a fast food, it's okay. I mean the client wanna have people for a few minutes, and you can also make some sport and burning calories during eating ham. So next time you come to Barcelona, you can try this experience, or even at home. I don't know if you have a fixed bicycle. So we used dot patterns also for addressing other projects, and I'm really happy because I have here some of my clients. And we were working together in these projects, and this is the pavilion that we designed for Iota Devices in 2013. And Mobile World Congress is the world largest fair of mobile industry, and the Russian company Iota Devices presented the Iota phone for the first time. So the first Android phone with a liquid crystal display and the paper display on the other side, no? So the company presented also some routers and connectivity devices. So, and the idea of the client, I mean, it was important for the client to generate a sort of experience. Here you can see, this is the plan, in which you can see how the dot patterns were erased for Try to imagine, try to memorize and follow my words. So in the case of the Iota Pavilion, we began analyzing the customer's needs in an initial briefing, and these needs and often wished and desires are enforced through architectural and technical filters. So in this case, the idea was to generate a sort of an experience. No, we want to connect the brand with an experience, and this experience is based on the generation of a kind of landscape, no, a kind of wood, of a forest, sort of a living sculpture, which is creating a novelty of a completely transparent architecture. So it was important to have like a transparent space, but without using glass. So the roads, these roads that are the dots that we've seen in the plan, are generating this kind of material system, which is a transparent material without using transparent materials like glass, for instance. No, so the purpose of the booth was twofold. On one side, to exhibit these innovative products, and also to induce a deep sensory experience. So the project is organized by two architectural operations. Firstly, we defined a shelter, a space that is characterized by the deployment of these two surfaces. And the second one is the introduction of these linear elements, no, that are connecting these two surfaces. So these linear elements are generating a forest of metal roads, no, where we integrate all the elements of the project, like the structure. All the furniture is floating and is suspended in this kind of net. And this operation will allow to delimitate the boundaries of the pavilion without closing it visually. So we get the maximum visibility and permeability without creating a sealed space detached from outside. So all the components of the project were prefabricated and assembled on site. We have different strips of the two different surfaces that we see here. Then we start with assembling of the floor slabs and the arrangement of the pillars. Once the pillars are fixed, we start to assemble the ceiling slabs. Here you see the skeleton of the pavilion, which is almost ready. And the two functional boxes of the kitchenette and the mapping room work well, we'll see it later. Here, no? So afterwards we start to close the functional rooms and to place the roads into the exhibition space. So all the roads must be vertical, perfectly vertical. This was a quite tough job. So these vertical steel roads are generating this envelope. And through the repetition of the same road, we are generating all the path, no, all the circulation path. that these capsules are playing not only the role of displaying the product, but also they are performing with the aesthetic of the pavilion. You see how all the furniture is suspended, is connected, and is floating through the use of these rods. And these are the capsules for displaying the products. So here you see how the capsules are floating, and we have also the base station. Here you can appreciate how the capsule is showing the product. And this is a small video that shows how the capsule were produced. So first you have to heat the material in a frame, then you adapt it to the mold, and with the suction, the material adapts perfectly with the mold. So the rods not only play with the artistic level of the project, but also the structural level, and providing structural support. This is the stair that is leading to the meeting room, and these are the custom-made furniture that were used as a base station for presenting the yotaphones and the connectivity devices. So you see that on the left we don't have any monitors, we just have in a clean surface the back projection in this piece of furniture that is still floating into the space, and on the right we have the small storage on the bottom, and on the top we have the display with the connectivity devices that will be presented by the presenter, basically, no? So on the right we have the other display with the yotaphone showing the two sides. So here we see some images of the fabrication process. This is another view of this furniture that is surrounded by the capsules. Here are some details of the furniture used in the pavilion, and the close-up of the connectivity devices base station. So now we enter into the 3D mapping room. For this reason, a space has been entirely reserved to house a show based on the projection over a 3D model in order to show the brand ideology and the new yotaphone. So here we see how the dot pattern is used in a different way. So we have this kind of gradient that come from one side to the other one and is grouped by a cluster of 3 dots. It was used for, once again, one year after realizing the first Iota pavilion. We did the second one. And in this case, I mean, we try to produce another different immersive experience to the visitors. So this one project that should achieve again a very big expectation, because the client want to generate a wow effect, no? And then we'll see how we try to do it. This is the site. This time we had a better site because it's in the center of the Congress area, and it's very close to the entrance to the fast track, and the site is bigger and more of an exhibition space than a booth. The whole project should be thought of as a landscape, no? And all the function were placed into the perimeter of the space, and we have like a big plaza for the visitors. These are the first. This is a side view where you can appreciate the relation between the ceiling and the topography and the lower space. And this is one of the final visualization that has been shown to the client. So only no, it's not this the one that we shown. It's a bit. I think that my computer took a bit of vodka. This. What can we do? It's, let's see if I go further. No. Okay. So this is the visualization. The only thing that we changed was the central furniture, and this was the final result. So we could explain the project through as a combination of 3 different patterns according to 3 different elements, which are the ceiling, the exterior cladding, and the ribs topography. So we have 2 different strategies. We have above a cloud, like a topographic ceiling, which is generating an attractive, evocative call, synchronized with the music. We'll see it later. And there's an LED system which is synchronized and take part of the lowest part of the topography. So it's image that is like, our idea was like to entering in a landscape that was smooth as snow, no? And we have the display of the different elements around which are integrated. And then outside we have this cladding which is following the verticality of the ceiling. So it's a sort of rain that is colonizing the facade. So let's talk more in detail about the ceiling. These are the polycarbonate tubes that are used for the construction of the ceiling. There are 2,200 meters of tubes, and this is the graphical algorithm that has been used for shaping the topography and controlling all the data of the tubes. This is the plan that showed the geometrical array of the tubes of the topography. As you can see, the pattern is not an homogeneous grid, but it's a radial gradient oriented toward the visitors, no? Because the visitor is coming from there, and we are following this direction. Of course, we have to split these in different panels, and we have to give information regarding each point, which are the position of the tube and its length. And here you can see that in the central part we have also the characteristic of the LED, which is not taking the whole length of the tube, but only one part for generating this kind of a void that is emitting light. So here is the organization for the construction, because every panel contains 2 different pieces. And for cutting the tubes, we have the same problem of material optimization. In fact, we have, the tubes that they sell is 3 meters, but we have different kind of tubes and different dimensions. So the optimization was a key factor in the production of these. So that's why with this algorithm we were able to divide the tube in the 3 different parts. No, so we have this is the position of the tube, this is the number of the tube, and then you have the different lengths. So the algorithm was setting to was matching the best configuration for optimizing the material. And these are the labels that we placed physically on manually onto the tubes, and then we cut it. Then you have to place them, no? And what is interesting here is that each tube is connected to the other one with the dimensional relationships. Because if you imagine to change one of these tubes, you will immediately see, because they are connected by a surface. No, it's a discretization of a surface. It's like when you go to cut your hair and they make you a hole. No, if you make it wrong. And they know a bit about hairs. So this is the cladding. And this pattern is defining the cladding of the pavilion. So we try to follow the verticality of the cloud to continue on the wall, materializing a topographical patterns. So this is not very visible, but it's representing like the density of the perforation. And we transform this gradient in dots. And these are the drawing that we used. We codified in 3 layers. So we have the superficial erosion, the open erosion, and the big erosion. The big erosion is, so the milling is following the path. In this case, the drill is just making a small engraving of the surface, and here is making the hole. So here we give also the depth of the hole. So this is the CNC milling machine during the cutting process. And what is interesting is that the intersection that were emerging through the operation. And these are the cladding panels during the assembling. And outside this techno landscape is the result of the erosion. We have these light effects that's coming out from the dots. The other part of the project was the topography, using these fins. So these are the ribs that we used. So the orientation of these ribs is perpendicular to the direction of the. They don't like plants, I think, no? When you enter the space, you have the ribs that are perpendicular to you, so you can see very well the product. This is the algorithm that we use for controlling the parameters like thickness of the ribs, the distances, width, etc., and the joint. So here the optimization of the ribs within the MDF panels. And these are the components that defines the ribs. So the ribs were primed first and then painted. And this is the assembly of one of the corners of the pavilion, where the ribs are connected both sides. And this is an image from inside before covering the ribs with the lycra. So here you see how we connected the ribs together. So they became like a unique material system. This series of ribbons rebuild this smooth and clear and sensual interior surface. So it's like if you try to put down the surface, you're like reconstructing the cube, no, the space. So on one, so the ribs, on the one hand, they disappear for let the projection emerging, or they became thicker for encapsulating the products, the items. So moreover, this landscape covers functional areas such as technical rooms or meeting room on the right. So under this topography, you have the functions of the other functions. So this is another image where you see the presentation stand, where the presenter can choose different programs with different lights, different projection, etc. And we also had this collapsible screen that can be part of that can slide up and disappear. So the premise and the goal of the product was to generate a strong attraction and to produce a sensorial experience. And this is how we encapsulate the devices. So in just 1 centimeter, we have the cabling for charging the device, then we have the lighting, and everything is encapsulated by these capsules. So here's the plan where we classify all the different items and their capsules. So these are the different devices that we had to show, and this is the plan that represent this program. So according to the content, we have different size of capsules, different brackets, and different finishing. These are the molds that were used for the capsule vacuum forming. So in this moment, we heat the acrylic. We take out the acrylic from the oven. We adapt it over the mold. And we turn on the vacuum. So the acrylic adheres completely to the mold. Afterwards, we place the frame in its position and we cut out the capsules. And these are the capsules. And this one is one of the brackets that we used inside of the capsule. This is another one. And these are all the fixing elements for supporting the device and holding the USB cable. So we design and we fabricate all these things. The capsules are integrated within the same system. So we see the two ribs deformation. On one side, the enlargement for encapsulating the devices, and the blurring of the ribs for opening some screen projection. You see how the projector is integrated with all the system. And here you see an image from the technical room where we used a mirror for reaching in such a small distance the sides. So here is the serration of the ribs with the capsule and the projections. So the ribs behave together as a single mass. This is the position of the speaker when you can choose, as I said before, the different programs, so different music and lighting programs. So all in all, the project should be thought as a welcoming plaza where visitors can appreciate. Of course, there were many, many people, as you can see here. And this is one of the most critical moments during the event. So more than 10,000 people were visiting the pavilion. And this is one video where you can see things that the picture cannot show. we have only the last two projects, if we have the time. So in this other project, we used basically the same idea of a pattern of dots where reducing and changing the dimension, the linear dimension, we can achieve different kind of surfaces. So this is a project that we've done for the Games of Thrones. So the Barcelona was chosen to host the presentation of the award of Ice and Fire, the book from Games of Thrones saga, and it was decided to transform this bookshop in the main display for generating something spatial in order to bring it closer to an epic dimension. So we represent the word of the wall of ice, which is generating the background of the scene, and then the word of fire with the throne, which is which is very close to the visitor. No, so here you see how the throne is. Of course, it's a different interpretation, which is not literal. And we see how we again try to generate this intense sensory experience through light and the temperature of the color and the geometry. So light and matter were considered like inseparable. And here we go to the last project, which is also using this idea of dot patterns through operation of erasing, floating, and topographical operations. So this is the exhibition of the Spanish pavilion for the Yosu Expo in Korea in 2012. So South Korea pays homage to oceans and coast by opening this Yosu Expo, and Spain names its exhibition Spain Explore, calling attention to its unrivaled tradition of geometrical exploration and scientific discoveries. So the project mission is to showcase Spain's nautical discoveries by turning a didactic exhibition into a sensory experience, which aims to go to the earth of the visitor. So we have three different stages. The central space that show the three key moments in Spanish seafaring, the Dymaxion map, which is the number 3, and the number 2 is the core of the project, which is the deep ocean. So this is the central space that show the three moments in Spanish seafaring. We have a circle split in two parts. The upper part is by an imaginary horizon. So in the upper part we have a didactic projection, and in the lower part we have three magic glasses that are working in this way. They are like boxes where we have behind the real physical object, and in the front we have a video that is explaining how the object was used during the seafaring. So we talk about Colombo's Malespina and Malespina 2010 expedition, which has been carried out by Hesperides' crew. So in the last room we have the Dymaxion map, which is the interpretation of the map made by Buckminster Fuller, and it's a map of 11 meters that presents the Hesperides discoveries. So the enclosed water is the generative pixel within the installation. So all these pixels are basically water, pixel of water. And the mapping contributes to generate a magical and moving atmosphere. So we enter in the key area of the project, which is the deep ocean. The visitor will enter a space which is lit up with samples containing water collected at a depth of 5,000 meters. The shape of the samples is reminiscent of the tubes used by Malespina 2010. So on the other side, the dot becomes an informative water lamp that generates the deep ocean installation. So this is the platform that you used for fixing the water lamps with rods of different height. Also here, the power of repetition is strongly present. So we enter into the deep ocean. The experimental samples become more complex, turning into high-tech glazed amphora, which generate a sort of abyssal topography. So you can see the details of this water lamp. So we have a double glazed like test tube where we collect the water, and we have an LED RGB LED system which is controlled by DMX, and it's also it generates like a piece which connects the rod with the lamp. So it's like a buffer element. So these are images of the production of the glass blowing, shaping glass with the blue fire. So here we are connecting basically the two surfaces, two tubes together. We're melting them together. So you see, we first place the two tubes, and then we melt the edge. So the topography is also the rule of expanding and shrinking to regulate the flux of the people, because we need to keep a certain distance from the projection for not having a shadow on the screen. At the same time, it has to be like a night which is strongly connected with the projector, because we have like a dynamic effect into the capsules, into the water lamp, but we also have 3D mapping into the capsules. So these are more images, and here we go to the video. Okay, thank you very much. Not very difficult question, please. No, I'm joking.
So once again, when you come up with an idea of something, whether it's an exhibition booth or a piece of furniture or something else, do you always know what materials you're going to use in advance, or and how you're going to assemble this, or you always need to consult with the constructors?
No, in all these works I was working as constructor.
Oh, so you know the material.
I mean, most of the time the project comes from the material. That's why I'm talking about material systems. So it's not something that comes after the design process, but it comes with the design process.
So first goes the idea or the material?
It's in parallel. When I was showing like the feedback loop, I was just saying this. I mean, you start with a concept, then when you try to develop it in the different steps, the next step is informing the previous one, no? And while you're getting more involved into the technical aspects, then sometimes you have even to change the concept, no? But for instance, if these projects are so vinculated with the materiality that, I mean, for instance, if you're doing some ribs, the ribs can be cut out from a planar panel, So we have different, many ways of doing so. No, but then you have to know if you are using something transparent or it's opaque. No, so you have a range of possibilities, but the material is very vinculated to the project, to the concept from the very beginning.
That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your presentation. Could you please tell me the following? When you do the assembly, do you take into consideration that people would like to touch your material? What about tactile censoring?
That's a good question. So we consider, yes, of course, the idea is that people can touch it, and even they are very fragile things, the idea is that they are generating a sort of respect, no? So you can touch it, but you cannot destroy it. So it's part of the thing, and we never had problem of vandalism during, I don't know, an exhibition, and also because they are temporary things. No, if we have to design something that is more durable, then of course it's really important that the product must be durable. But the tactile sensation, which you were probably referring in your question, is it should be part of the sensorial and experiential activity, no, or experience. So I think that we could take into consideration more probably, but for the moment it's just something that we consider in the technical aspect more than in the experiential experience. Because we could work, I don't know, with the temperature of the materials, or with the movement. For instance, now we are working in a one-star Michelin restaurant in which there's a surface that is separating two spaces, which is made of 20 fins, which are robotics, so you can control and you can interact also with the material in this sense, no? So the next time that I will be here, I hope to show you. If you have more questions, we can have something to drink and finishing the discussion.
Итак, вопросов больше нет, значит, на этом все. Thank you for your lecture.
Yes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.